Her blue coat was now glistening crimson, also dripping as she ignored the need for live ponies. There would be more. Cloudsdale could take a small shortage of rainbows. In another few months, there would be more classes, more failures, but for now, all she knew is that Skulu had to die, violently if possible. Decades of working for the Rainbow Factory had fractured her. She was the only one allowed out in public, and keeping the horrible secret with her since childhood had only led to psychological problems that no amount of therapy could cure. Scootaloo was her last link on sanity, and her failure had deleted that. There was no logic in her mind anymore. No care, no capacity for compassion, only hate. Pure, concentrated, and even evil hatred filled the gap of her love for Scootaloo had once occupied. Rainbow Dash was no more. Only this monster remained. I hardly knew you, Aurora, Scootaloo cooed softly into the yellow Pegasus beside her. I'm sorry I never knew you until all this. I'm sorry we had to meet like this. And I'm sorry we have to part like this, she sniffed. She had found more tears. Any meeting of a friend is a welcome meeting, Aurora reassured Scootaloo. Now, you heard the other pony. Fly, Scootaloo, fly. Goodbye. Goodbye, Aurora. With that, Scootaloo levitated and spun around, looked into the yellow pony's eyes one last time, and launched down the cramped corridor. She had no idea where she was going, but any chance of freedom was one she had to take. Aurora blinked a couple times, standing in front of the door. Rainbow Dash would have at least one obstacle in her way to Scootaloo. The blue pony tossed the last of her other students over the scaffolding and slowly walked towards Aurora. Oh, you're cute. You think that you, a useless, broken pile of manure, could possibly stand in my way? Ha! You really make me laugh. None of you can compete with the awesome power I have. Love can overcome all evils in this world. Aurora straightened herself in rebellion as Rainbow Dash stopped in front of her. Aurora stayed in front of Dash, barring her entry down the corridor beyond. Well then, bitch, let's see if love can overcome this one. And with that, Rainbow Dash grabbed one of Aurora's bandaged wings and pulled, tearing it off her completely. Aurora collapsed onto her knees, grinding her teeth in horrible pain. But she didn't scream. She wouldn't give in to Rainbow Dash. Rainbow grabbed her other wing and dragged her, kicking and moaning down the center of the scaffolding. She lifted Aurora by the wing, laughing quietly to herself as the look of intense agony appeared on Aurora's face. Rainbow Dash took to the air, bringing the squirming yellow and green pony with her. Overtopped the machine. With a squeak of evil laughter, she jerked at the wing in her hoof. It too disconnected from the now convulsing Pegasus, and Aurora fell. She landed head first. The door on the scaffolding closed with a gust of wind, just as the machine began pumping out the brightest greens and yellows that it had ever produced. And there was no one around to see it. Scootaloo glanced backwards momentarily, her head pounding. The noise of constant thump, thump, thump drowned out any other sound in her head. Her ears were throbbing along with it. The corridor was just like the one that led to the theater room, cramped with dozens of obstacles jutting out at random intervals. Straight behind her, maybe 500 meters now, the bloody mare that used to be Rainbow Dash was cruising along herself. Both Pegasi were completely straight, hooves forward, wings beating at an impossible count, one trying to escape, the other to capture. Scootaloo looked forward again, focusing on what lay ahead of her. That's all that matters, she thought. What's ahead of me? There is no changing what's behind me. Ignored. Focus. For the second time in many days, a flood of instinct overtook Skulu, and despite the terror she felt in her body, the sorrow that surrounded her, and the evil behind her, her worries melted away, and the thought of flying encased her very being. Down under wires and pipes she ducked, up and around various workers whose complaints and shouts were ignored, only to be repeated momentarily as the raging pony behind collided with them. Her body doing the flying, Skulu's thoughts turned to escape opportunities. She whipped around sharp corners at impossible speeds, zipped up and down countless sets of stairs, trying to shake her murderous tail, but with no avail. She contemplated every nook and cranny she passed, briefly considering hiding. She struck that idea down. As insane as Rainbow Dash may be, she was still too smart to overlook any possible spot Skulu may be. But there, ahead of her, Skulu thought she found a solution. A garbage vent of some kind, sticking up from the wall, down to the floor below. Momentarily, she gave thought to where it may lead, whether out of the factory or to some incinerator she couldn't tell, but it was probably worth the risk. She snuck one last glance behind her to make sure the unstable mare was far enough. Rainbow Dash was paying no attention to any hazard as she sought her prey, tearing through electrical wires, ricocheting off heated pipes, going through any obstacle rather than around it to save time. But the collisions had slowed her down enough to give Skulu a chance. She slammed to a sudden halt over the open vent, hoping for her life. "Fall!" she muttered, closing her eyes and her wings, resisting the urge to start flapping immediately. She counted silently to herself as shadows rushed past her closed eyes, hoping for the best of where this vent led. 1, 2, 3. She opened her eyes and her wings, and looked up, hovering. Rainbow Dash was up above, looking down into the vent. Her eyes were buggy and twitched. Her hooves pounded on the edge of the vent. She was too large to follow, the filly having barely made it in herself. But then the anger on her face vanished, only to be replaced by a malicious grin. She started laughing again, the cackle echoing down the vent and reverberating in Skulu's mind. "You moron! You never did have a good sense of direction," she teased, laughing again. Skulu finally looked down, getting her bearings. "Oh no," she squealed. She was in a theater room again, but only by now it was full of suited ponies circling her. Their masked faces seemed to be grinning at her as Rainbow Dash shouted orders down the vent. "Don't let her die! I must do it! Subdue her! Catch her!" She whinnied in glorious victory as the suits shocked. Skulu, with a taser, and her limp body began to fall from the air, caught her and brought her to the floor. Skulu blacked out momentarily as the electricity passed through her, but she came to lying on the cold cloud floor, metal shackles preventing her from moving. She struggled to get free. She could hardly shake. The chains lifted her slightly, bringing her small body eye to eye with the Pegasus in front of her. The pony was deep, blood red, glistening in artificial light of the factory. Her mane had small spots of glorious colors of the rainbow, but it was mostly the same red color as her coat of fur. Chunks of skin were missing from small spots, and her hair was ripped in some places, bald patches of skin in others. The only clue Skulu had as to who this used to be were the rose irises focused on her. "Any final last words, you miserable, worthless whore of a fool?" Skulu brought her chin high, still demanding even the tiniest fraction of dignity. "You have beautiful eyes," she cooed, soft yet clearly.
Once you get to know it, with the help of the magic of a Pegasus device.